Hi, my name is Shelley Grafstein, and welcome to this incredible free online conference called The Connected Moms, Parenting Your Teen Through Difficult Times. And I'm so happy to have you here today as a viewer and to introduce a very good friend of mine and a wonderful neighbor, Helise Pollack. So please, Helise, thank you so much for joining us today. Helise, beside being an incredible person and a great friend, Helise has been a therapist and child advocate for over 25 years. She has worked as a social worker in various public service agencies and is in private practice as a psychotherapist with childhood, or specializing with child sexual abuse. And Helise today is going to talk to us about how important it is to have a close relationship with your child, so that if, God forbid, they do experience or have experienced sexual abuse, they will tell you. And if they do tell you, what you can do. She's going to walk us through her system called RED. And there's so much to talk about sexual abuse we could talk for days, but we have 20 minutes. So Helise, welcome, and tell us about this RED system that you spoke to me about.
Okay, so before I talk about RED, I want to say a couple of other things first. Firstly, when I meet with parents, they always ask me, what can I do to prevent my child from being sexually abused? How can I protect my child? The answer that people don't want to hear is that you cannot 100% protect your child. We cannot be next to them 24/7. There's nothing that we can do to 100% protect our children. However, that said, there are a lot of things that can be done to promise or to help a child survive sexual abuse. And the key ingredient in that is having a good relationship so that your children know they can come to you to tell you when something is wrong. That said, only 2 out of 10 children do come to tell immediately. Others tend to tell after a time period, and some never tell. We're aiming for the 2 of the 10 because the longer a child holds in a trauma, the more damage it does. So, how do we get kids to tell us what's going on in their lives? And again, if they don't feel bad, because really, if only 2 out of 10 do, it means 8 aren't. A child or a young person, if they don't feel comfortable telling us, the parents, that they got caught cheating on a test or they were caught in a store stealing, if they're afraid to tell us things, then they're not going to tell us this because they don't know what this means. And very often when a child is sexually abused, their first response is not "get off me." Their first response is frozen, not doing anything. And then after the event, they feel guilty that they didn't stop it, that they didn't scream, that they didn't run. And then the guilt is one of the reasons they don't come to tell us what's going on. So we have to understand why they're not telling. And so many parents, when they hear their child's been sexually abused, and when the child does come to say, I've been sexually abused, they say, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me sooner? And the first question that I hear over and over again, and I just want to give you a replacement sentence if ever you should, chas v'chalila, be in this situation, and that would be, I am so glad that you're coming to tell me this. We're gonna figure it out. And then you can go freak out and come back and deal with it. But,
oh my gosh, yes, it's so empowering. It's it's so empowering for the kid to hear that, as opposed to them feeling like a shmata, like now you're making me feel bad on top of the terrible I feel about the abuse, but now they're empowered. So it's great.
But it's automatic because parents don't understand why children don't feel that they can come to them with anything. We parents, we're here, we're ready to listen. if something like that happened, most of us would say, oh, wow, of course I would want to know, and I want to help you, and I want to do something. But the messages that we give children when we're raising them, we have to think about the ramifications of those messages. For example, we want a child to be able to learn to trust their gut. So that means that if something doesn't feel right in a relationship, we want them to be able to feel like something's not right and to be able to say, something's not right, Mom. I'm not quite sure what's wrong, but something doesn't feel comfortable for me. But if we don't train them to trust their gut, why should they trust their gut? Somebody older or somebody, somebody older or with influence or authority who's doing something inappropriate to them, why should they don't know, like, how could it make sense that my teacher or my friend's father or my grandfather or my brother or my sister or whoever, I'm supposed to trust them? How come, like, wait, is something wrong with me? Like, what's wrong with this picture? So that they automatically are questioning themselves. So one of the greatest gifts we can give a child is to learn to trust their own gut instincts. And how does that play out in everyday life? When a child is eating and they say, I'm done. And we say, no, finish those last vegetables. Finish that last bit of that. Mm-hmm. Or I'm not hungry. No, dinner is at 5 o'clock. That's it. You have to eat at 5 o'clock. That's it. We're not training them to trust their gut. We need to train them to say, when they say, what should I wear, this or this? Instead of giving an answer, well, what do you think? Let's, oh, you made a good choice. Or I want a cookie before dinner. Well, what do you think that, instead of saying no, well, if you eat a cookie now before dinner, will you have an appetite for dinner? I'm concerned you won't be hungry for dinner, and I'm thinking that's why maybe I'm going to say no now. It's okay to say no, but it wouldn't be a regular just no. You want to get them to think. My gut instincts are so strong that I can look at a piece of chocolate and know, will this feel good for me right now, or will this make me feel ill right now? Same piece of chocolate, I'll feel differently one day than I will another, because I read my body. I know what's going on.
Isn't bringing out that quality of listening to your instincts a huge deterrent for to fend off perpetrators? That I read that so many perpetrators prey on kids who are so out of touch with their own emotions, their own instincts, that if we really strengthen that part of them, that's 3/4 of the battle done already.
Right.
I just made that 3/4 up. I don't know the statistic, but
I don't either. I will say that there are Chugei Bayit, Shauna Aronson of Magen, they have a team of people who do group meetings and discuss, for 2 hours, how to help prevent sexual abuse. And there's all kinds of, how do you recognize a groomer? How do you recognize when something's wrong? I will say, in terms of instincts, as parents, if something doesn't feel comfortable, trust your gut. There's a family that called a babysitter, and that babysitter couldn't come. So the mother of the babysitter sent another son without asking if it was okay. And when that babysitter came to the house, the parents didn't feel comfortable telling him, no, we don't feel comfortable with you. Lo naim, it's not nice. So they let him stay, and he molested 2 of their children. So when you have a gut instinct, go with it. Trust it. Something doesn't feel quite right, trust it. And there's a whole lot more in this particular area that I won't get into. Okay. But the issue of trusting instincts is a big one, yours and your children's.
Excellent. Let me just ask you a question. At what age, one sec, before we go into another topic, at what age would you suggest parents organize a Chugei Bayit? When their kids are like 2 or 3, or when they're older? Like, when is an appropriate time?
When they feel the need. when they have these questions.
Okay.
And you can organize a group of people, you can organize your neighbors, your friends, and you can have a chug bite. There, there's lots of people out there to answer the questions, and Magen is right here in our backyard, and they have this program. I believe that there's a similar program in Ma'aneh, which is an organization that treats sexual abuse in the Haredi community.
Mm-hmm.
So they also have education for parents, but I don't know their program. I know Magen's program because I helped build it.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure that all the programs are, useful. The only thing that I really want to add, and this is critical, whether your parent, no matter how old the children are, most programs that I have seen have put the responsibility of preventing sexual abuse on the children, like teaching 4-year-olds to scream and to run. And what we have to know is that up until children are a certain age, there's a law that says a child can't cross the street until they're 9 by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is they may be very capable of crossing the street when they're 7, but they can be easily distracted. And that one time that they're distracted or they see a dog, they could fly into the street and get hit. Their brain is not yet developed enough to be able to foresee what's happening and prevent it. So the same with sexual abuse, putting the responsibility on the children. All these programs are lovely, but there's an added problem because then the child thinks, oh, I learned about it. If it happened to me, then I must have failed.
Right.
And then I'm really bad. And then I better not tell my parents because I messed up. And that's my problem with those programs. So that the programs of communicating to your parents if something happens or if something doesn't feel right, you have this right. But if it happens and you freeze, which many of us do when we're shocked, then it's okay. You need to just get away when you can and come and tell your parents or your teacher or someone to come and help you. So that's another critical piece, which is why, I really give the message that it's not up to the kids to keep the kids safe. It's up to the adults to keep the kids safe.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility for a kid.
I'll give you an example. I think this is fascinating. I think this was Dr. Pelkowitz's example. I think I heard this years ago. There was an experiment done where children in a gan in the United States were given this, play, this talk about keeping safe and not talking to strangers. And then they wanted to test it. So downstairs, outside, they had a van parked right in front of the building. And in the van were puppies. Some guy in there with puppies on purpose, part of the program. Almost no child didn't go in that van 5 minutes after that whole workshop with the children. Children cannot be trusted to keep themselves safe, period.
Yeah,
and
sense.
when you're talking teens, close to us, adults, we sit there and kind of think, wait, is he doing something wrong? Am I being oversensitive? Is something happening here? Until we find our voice to say, excuse me, could you give me a little more space? I feel crowded. There's a whole turmoil in us, a possible freeze. Lo naimli, I don't want to hurt his feelings. We go through all that. If we go through all that, what's a 16-year-old going to go through? So again, we have to keep our expectations where they need to be.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. Yeah.
So I'm going to shift. How do we build a good relationship with our children? And I'm going to focus on one thing that we can do that I think can make a difference. When we're talking to our kids, we tend conflict. we tend to be angry. We tend to sort of go into a critical mode of, why didn't you come home on time? You're late. And what we're doing is we're shutting them down. We're not opening up a possibility for a dialogue. So what we want to do is something that I call RED, reflection, empathy, dialogue. And I'll just show it to you. Reflection, empathy, and dialogue. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to show. I need to look at it to say it. Reflection, instead of saying something like, you're late, we say it in a more neutral voice. A reflection. I see that you've come in late today. We keep it neutral. We keep it non-judgmental. Empathy might be, for you to come home late, something must have happened. What happened? Is everything okay?
Yeah.
And then we go into dialogue, and we might be too angry to go into dialogue in that moment. And it's okay to put the dialogue off for another time. We can say, we need to talk about this, but right now I'm upset. So how about we talk about this tomorrow? Or if there's a possibility of dialogue, we would say, what's going on? Something's going on that's making you late. Are you upset? Are you angry? Are you, what's happening? When we enter in dialogue, we can't promise our kids are going to answer us nicely. We can't promise everything's going to go well, but we've upped the chances by at least 50%. At least 50%. And if we have kids who are really, 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 really difficult, then okay, we might need to seek counseling, seek advice. What else can I do? But this RED allows for us to enter into a conflict using a dialogue.
Yeah. I've done both. I played both roles depending where I was on my parenting journey. And yes, when you come accusatory, you just totally close the kid down and there's no chance for dialogue. And when you approach with curiosity, then they don't feel shut down. And I haven't had a kid push me away when I've approached with curiosity, but for sure 100% failure rate when I approach with that heavy head. I stayed awake all night and here it is 5 a.m. What's going on? Doesn't work. But anyways, I interrupted, so go ahead.
It's okay. I want to say that it looks easy. Reflection, empathy, dialogue looks so easy. But you have to know when your child is late, and that's just one of many examples, we are triggered. We are triggered. We respond from our emotional place. And to change this and to learn reflection, if life were so easy that you could read this in a book, I would not have a job because everything I'm saying is written. But it's like learning a new language. Learning a new language takes time and practice. We get it wrong the first time. We totally mess it, but then we realize we messed it. The next time around, maybe we stop for a minute and try this reflection thing. It takes time and patience, but it is a foolproof method in any conflict, whether with your husband, your wife, your boss, the guy in Kupat Cholim who yells at you. I coming home from the United States, I was watching, how it's just shooting at each other, like shooting. Whoa, you me. You must be in a rush, something like that. And that would get to people more than, you did this to me. And then they just yell back. Yeah. And so instead of engaging, we want to shut up. We don't want to, because then we're going to feel like victims.
Helise, I'm putting.
Recording in progress, it's telling me, okay. Okay, so
Sorry.
So what I was saying was, learning reflection, learning all of these things takes time. It's like learning a new language. It takes a lot of practice, and we have to recognize that we get triggered and that we have to work on our own nervous system responses to be able to make this change. And once we do that and we practice this change, it is foolproof. It works. Reflection, empathy, and dialogue is the way to approach any relationship conflict, whether with your mother, your sister, your boss, your anything, your family. If we approach any conflict with red, the results are much better. And it also puts us in a frame of mind that's less emotional, so that we can be more rational in our approach. It takes time to get to that place where we can do this, but it's very worth learning how.
Wow, I love that. I was just talking in the kitchen with, I was just in the kitchen with my kids before I came to interview you. And we were talking about this parenting approach that I really bothered me. And I shared it with my kids and I said, what do you think of it? And they both said, this mother needs to learn a new language. Like, her language is not working. Like, and they both said, when you're a parent, you can't show up the same way as you did before you were a parent. You need, they basically said what you said, a new language. And it's so true. I realized by trial and error that if I was showing up as the 20-year-old, it wasn't going to work. Like, I can't fly off my handle. You really have to approach with curiosity and really want to hear their side of the story, from not to kill them because they express their side of the story, but to validate. And I think validating doesn't mean agreeing. It just means I hear where you're coming from. And I think that's also such an important thing for kids to hear. She understands me. And I think that's great.
Exactly. I also think that when you're talking about parenting, if you have children who are having a hard time, and this is one tool that is really foolproof, but it doesn't mean it's going to solve everything. There's so much in parenting. This is one piece, and it's good for conflict, but there's so much more to parenting than just this. And, in a half an hour, we're obviously, just touching on sexual abuse and touching on relationships. And, there's so much more information and so much more for all of us to learn. And the learning never really ends. We move forward, we get better at things, we learn new things. And so this is just one.
Right. And as our kids get older, like my youngest is 18. Well, actually, your youngest is even older than my youngest. We need different skills because we're now relating to them as adults. And I've got a daughter who's a mother. We relate to them different. So we're continually upgrading, coming out with new and better versions of ourselves. But
yeah, definitely.
Well, this was great. I learned a lot, Helise. And tell us where we can find you if we want to get some advice, come to you for counseling, send our kids to you. Although I know you're like book solid.
I'm very honest. I'm very full right now. And I'm really very full right now. I'm listed. I have a booklet online under my name, Helise Pollack. It's a Wix site thing. And it has a pamphlet for parents whose children have been sexually abused. I can be reached on there as well. There's a place to reach me through my email. And I'm listed and everything. But if you have questions at this time, I would forward you to Magen.
Okay.
Because that is like a hotline, and I have their number. And I can read it slowly.
Yeah, put it on the screen.
I'm not sure which is the fax and which is the phone number. So I will give you two numbers.
Okay, hold on. Let me put it on
They're
the
both
screen.
02.
One sec, Helise.
Okay.
Okay, 02.
372.
Yeah.
4105.
Okay.
And the second number, one of them is a fax and one of them is the phone. I'm not sure.
All right.
The second one, 02 544
Mhm.
4766.
Okay. Okay, terrific. Helise, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. You should continue to help our children and your neighbors. And and thank you.
This was fun. Thank you for having me, Shelley. This
All
was a
right.
lot of fun.
All right. Have a good
All
night,
right,
Helise.
take care.
Bye.